Okay, today I want to show how to use and make a buddy burner. And a buddy burner is a really simple way to make a stove. It's a great thing if you're a scavenger or hobo like us, because it's made out of a tuna fish can. You can also use a cat food can, corrugated cardboard, and either candle wax, which is best, or a crayon. So I'm going to go ahead and light this one. This is one I already made. And just hold the lighter to it. It works sort of like a sterno stove. And I find the more you use it, the easier it lights. But in the beginning, I just made this one today. You gotta hold the lighter to it for a few seconds. And I can hear it sizzling. We got wind to contend with here too.
Like block the wind a little bit.
But once it gets lit, there it goes. Once it gets started, it'll usually spread. And you can use anything to, like, it'll get bigger and bigger. And we'll come back to this, but bricks are an ideal height. If you have something that's bigger than the top, you can just set it on top of these bricks as is. I found this grill kind of sitting in the woods, so I'm going to use this. And we're going to put this cup of water on there and see how close we get to boiling by the end of this video while I show how to make one.
It's about at 1 minute 30 seconds now.
Alright, so here I have my tuna fish can, and I've already got one strip of cardboard in there. You want corrugated cardboard, the stuff that's like kind of layered. And if you look at it, there's one part that you can see the tubes, the little holes, and then there's the lines. So you want the tubes facing up and down inside the can. This will hold the wax. I also have my can here, and I gotta reach in front of you to get these grabbers. So I've got melted candle wax in there. I'm gonna put this in my coals. And this is a candle we found in a dumpster. We did not buy this. I'll chop this into a couple more pieces.
Oh yeah, I hear it sizzling.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw, this has got the wick in it, but that's okay. Because when I pour it, I can pour it to make sure that the stuff I don't want doesn't get in there. And here's a strip I cut. When you make your strips, you want them to be as close to the top without going over the top as possible. If they do go over the top, it's no big deal, but that's just what to shoot for. So like I said, I've already got one that I stuck in there and kind of unwind it to make it as big as possible. And I'll show you how to spiral this one in. I just push it in there, and then I open it up as much as I can. If you're familiar with cassettes, if you're that old, if you remember kind of sticking your finger in that hole, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, boy.
And the way I do it, you can be a perfectionist and make little marks and measure it and everything. I just kind of eyeball it, so I look at what looks like the right thickness, and cut it. Start cutting it with this crappy pair of scissors, which we also scavenged, by the way. And now and then I'll put it up again, kind of eyeball it, and see if I need to take my cut a little bit higher. Eyeball it once again. Alright. And I stick this piece in here. And take a look at the video like before I lit that last buddy burner, the first one I made that's cooking the water right now. And you can see what they look like. When they solidify, when they cool off, you can just stick it back in your backpack and keep on going. So they're really cool and portable. Great to make in an emergency. Easy to have on hand. And I've heard a couple different ways of doing this. One person says to keep it loose because it lets in more candle wax. My way is to put as much cardboard as I can in there. Can't say I've experimented enough to really know which way is best, but
you can.
But you can,
And
yes.
FYI, look at that. Where's the flame at here?
And I've had we've done this in camps before and had kids make these, and they've experimented with using crayons, which takes longer to melt, and also doesn't work quite as well, but it does work. So if for some reason you're in a scavenging hobo situation, you want to make one of these. And I found all this stuff just walking around behind stores. Candles you find all the time. Abandoned houses, behind craft stores. And I'll chop this up in half.
And for some reason, crayons, maybe restaurants that give kids crayons, or just behind stores that have packs of crayons, and for some reason they're thrown out. I don't know. They're out of fashion or something.
And I'm spiraling these. So I'm putting this in right in the middle. And I could go a little bit tighter, but I'm going to call that good enough. But if it's pretty tight, pretty filled in, you can do that. And now I'm going to take my can. Oh, and by the way, this is wax, so it can ignite and light on fire. So one way to do that is to put it in a, what you call it, a double cooker?
Well, there's a double boiler. You don't have to have a double boiler.
Yeah, you don't need the double boiler, so I just kind of skip it most of the time. But if you're like inside, you want to be more careful, you can get a pan with a little bit of water in there and put this in there, and it'll just melt the wax a little bit slower. But like I said, this is the way I usually do it. I just pour this melted wax in. This is a scented candle, which I don't recommend because you got to smell that weird scent when you're cooking. It does kind of wear off, but if you can find a candle that's not scented, even better.
We're not picky most of the time.
No. Hobos don't tend to be very picky.
And it doesn't impart the smell to the food or water from what I've experienced. It's just kind of initially strong and then it goes away.
Yeah, and I like to pretty much fill it up, which it is. So I just leave this here. This will solidify, and I can keep it if I want to, throw it away, the wax. Still in liquid form. And these little grabbers here are great. If you ever come across these things, man, we use them all the time. But then I just let this cool, and you know, I can kind of touch it and see if it's cool enough to pick up. When it's cool enough to pick up, I can tilt it and see if there's still anything runny in there. I want it solid like a candle. So as I'm letting this cool, and come over to our water. Oh, and you can leave the wrapper on the tuna fish if you want to. I took it off of this one, but I haven't really noticed it being a problem if I do leave it on. And the water is definitely warming up.
It's about 7 minutes, 30 seconds now. And this was cold water. We didn't put like room temperature. It was probably about 40 degrees.
And we got a breeze blowing. I didn't know if I'd be able to show a really cool, like, oh, it's boiling by now or not. But I have made plenty of cups of coffee. We've cooked on it, had no problem. So yeah, it's a definitely useful thing. I've had somebody wonder, like, well, can you really get it hot enough to cook food? Yeah, we've cooked, you know, soups. What else have we cooked on a buddy burner?
We've made quesadillas and grilled cheese. Of course, any sort of water-based thing like soup or oatmeal, you know, quinoa, rice. We actually had the kids. They were so excited when they made these buddy burners that they wanted to cook on them. And so they brought in like, when you use the buddy burner, because it's cardboard burning, it's gonna leave like some residue on your dishes. So you don't want to use a $400 pan. But the kids brought in like their parents' crappiest utensils and pans for campfire cooking, and they brought in eggs with cheese. Some kids brought in like bell peppers. One girl made what did she make? Mashed potatoes, and that turned out really well. And then we made altogether a mulligan stew. So there were a lot of things happening. There were frying pans, there were big pots of stuff boiling and cooking.
And for the group stew, we use 2 buddy burners, so that's another thing you can do for more heat is double them up. I've had kids make buddy burners with little cat food cans. To my knowledge, they haven't cooked on one yet, but it does light. It makes a little buddy burner, so that's got some potential. Like Teresa said, it does make a residue, so be aware of that. And it's going to get black from the wax burning, and the wax can get used up, so eventually it won't light anymore. You can just melt more wax like I did, pour it in there, and you're good to go. And rather than waiting for water to boil, because you could do that if you make one and experiment, I will go ahead and show you how to put this out. So you can improvise with rocks. Obviously I used this to elevate the cup because you know, of course, if you cut off the air supply, it puts it out. But if you have a brick or something, you can just use the brick to mash it out. This brick happens to have a hole in it, so. But that's basically how you put it out. And once you cut off the air, it should be out. Now it's out, and I wait for it to cool off, and you know, once it's solid again, I can wrap it in a little bag just to make sure I don't get the black soot, and put it in my backpack, and I'm ready to go. Anything else to add?
Well, like you said, you can use more than one, and also the closer it is to the fire, obviously, the faster it's going to cook. So maybe we had that grate when we didn't necessarily need it. It might get it a little bit closer to the flame, but still, it's really useful.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that thing.
So that's the buddy burner.